One of my concerns is, of course, you never let a kid have an adult credit card. Do you think that maybe those preloaded credit cards would be a good idea?
In this situation, absolutely, I would say that,
Mhm.
because if you're afraid that by putting that information on, for example, a game, then the kid just says, "Oh, I want to buy something else." Click, buy, and all of a sudden you get your card statement, and you're like, "What the heck is this $72 that you spent on XYZ game?" I read something recently that said something like by the age of 5 or something like that, the average child had already had, you know, 200 or 300 pictures of them already posted online from their parents. Because obviously the kids aren't doing it, they're too young. So as parents, I think we need to take a real hard look at whether or not we want all of this information going out there. Because as you said, who knows what's going to happen down the road, and whether or not something that we post either can be used against them in the future or what could be used against them tomorrow.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. And today we're talking about online security. Now, you probably stay pretty safe online. You never click the links on those spam messages. You only visit reputable sites, and you carefully read the privacy policy on every site you visit. But what about your kids? Are they staying safe online? Do they understand the consequences of posting an inappropriate selfie or using your credit card to unlock that next game level? It's time to sit down and have a chat as a family. And personal security expert Pete Canavan knows exactly what you should say. Pete has been helping clients and students learn how to protect themselves for over 20 years through his work as an IT security consultant, a martial arts and self-defense instructor, a university public safety officer, and an events security professional. He's written 5 books on self-defense and campus safety, and today he's going to show us what he recommends to keep our families safe online. Welcome, Pete.
Hello, and how are you today there, Amy? Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So most families today, everybody's online, mom's online, dad's online, the kids are online. Kids are starting to use the internet by age 3, probably because mom has taken her phone and put it in front of the baby, to keep him occupied. So at what age do parents need to start worrying about what junior's doing online?
Well, yes, it is scary that kids are being exposed to the internet from such an early age, 2 years of age, 3 years of age. And, I guess some of it is because it is sort of easy for parents to provide them with something that's going to keep them entertained, whether it's watching videos or playing a simple game on a phone or a tablet. But it's also, I think, not really the best sort of way to parent. I mean, I'm not criticizing how people parent, but all too often when you're outside, you do see a lot of times, people are out and about and the kids all have their devices and the parents have their devices and no one is interacting. And that to me is sad, because if we didn't have all this technology, we'd be forced to talk to each other and interact and sort of get closer as a family as well as with our friends, because we see that happening as well. Now, one of the nice features of a lot of the newer smartphones is they do have like a child mode. So it would prevent the child from, for example, locking the phone inadvertently. But you still have to sort of police what it is that the child is being exposed to. Now, speaking about young children, one way that you can do that, at least on your home network, is to set up your router that is connecting you to the internet and sharing that connection out to all the devices to basically not allow websites that have certain words in them from getting through. And so that's one measure of protection that's not that hard to do. You basically would log into the router. There's a security setting in a lot of these newer ones, and you could put in there, and also a lot of times they'll have preloaded words. And then you could add to it, like we can all think of the words that we don't want our kids to be looking up, but you could add them to it. And then that way, if they do try to go, and click on a link they shouldn't, either inadvertently or because they're curious, it's going to stop them and say, sorry, this site is blocked.
And what I love about that is that you're doing it at the router level as opposed to the device level, because every kid is a hacker at heart. Kids know how to hack those settings faster than their parents know how to set them. So I love that. And the other thing I love about what you said is the easiest way to protect your kids online is to get them offline. If you want your kids safe, have them outside playing rather than on their devices. And that also, of course, helps so much with their psychological health as well, given some of the links between smartphone use and depression. So I really, really love those suggestions. One of the scary things to me, though, is that there's a lot of information out there about how to keep kids safe online. Presumably, parents are more and more aware of this, and yet, still today, the average age kids encounter pornography on the internet is 12. How are they?
It's mind-boggling.
How?
Well, unfortunately, it's simple to get access to any information. And it doesn't matter if it's valuable, good information. Maybe you're looking things up on how to do something, whether it's schoolwork or how to fix your bicycle or whatever, or you're curious because you're maybe in a sex ed class in your school and they're talking about these different things and you get curious and you want to start, looking these things up. And, that's scary. So I think education cannot start early enough. And that begins right when, think about it. If you have children, you try to keep them safe any way possible from the time that they are born, whether it's stopping them from choking on something, putting something in their mouths, climbing up on kitchen cabinets, getting inside of things and whatever. So we're always trying to keep our kids safe. The time to sort of, I think, introduce new safety concepts is when the child reaches certain levels of maturity. So by the time they are maybe going to school, that's when maybe the summer before they're going to, say, kindergarten or first grade, you talk about the kids about how it's inappropriate if people, for example, are touching them in a certain way, or it's inappropriate if someone is asking them personal information. Well, where does your mom work? Where does your dad work? What do they do? Oh, did they come home from work right away? So we have to be really careful about letting our kids know that it is not okay on social media, online or offline for that matter, to give up too much personal information, because that, as we have seen, can lead to identity theft. It can lead to stalking. It can lead to robberies and burglaries. So, these things, they may start online, but then they can move offline. And that's the really scary part, because we didn't have to used to worry about that sort of stuff.
No, but what I really love about what you're saying is we know we have to do the stranger danger talk. We know we have to do the good touch, bad touch talk. This can just all be part of it, because we can talk about strangers in real life, but we can also talk about strangers online.
Absolutely. And, a lot of kids today, they feel like they're more popular if they have a whole bunch of friends. So it's like, oh, I got 1,200 friends. I got 1,500 friends. I only have 700 friends. I must be a loser. No, you half the time you don't even know a lot of the people that are asking you to be friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like, critical safety tip number one is if somebody's offering to, be your friend online and you don't know them, well, don't accept it. You don't know who they are. They don't, they may just be out there trolling for information. They may be looking for their next victim. You just don't know. And so kids need to be taught, because they don't really understand. They don't know this unless we as parents or as educators begin to inform them of what some of the bad things that can happen when they only maybe see the good. And that's a critical part of what we need to do to educate kids, again, starting from the youngest of ages and then all the way up through high school and college and then beyond.
Yeah, just keep that conversation going. So I wanted to get your take on a personal experience of mine. So last summer, some friends gifted my 6-year-old daughter with their old tablet. Of course, she's thrilled. And I'm thinking, because I have some issues with having a lot of screen time at home. And so I've been thinking a lot about what policies I should have. And we don't have a TV, and so she watches YouTube instead. And we've got the YouTube app that's for kids, and so it makes sure that she only can access age-appropriate content. But now she wants to start downloading games, and some of the games cost money. And I am unwilling, because it's her tablet, to put any of my credit card details in there. And I wanted to know, how can we as parents manage our kids' tablet use responsibly, especially when they're not old enough to understand money yet?
Well, there's a couple of things you mentioned that I think are critical to address. One of them is the amount of screen time that they have, because once they start using these devices, they get addicted to it. I mean, there's like all kinds of studies out there now that are saying, that like social media addiction and online gaming addiction, I mean, these are all things that they're trying to make sort of real, uh, you know, illnesses, I guess
Yes.
is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't have to be. Like you're saying, limit the time that the child has and establish those parameters and those boundaries and say, look, you come home from school, you can use it for an hour. Then you got to make sure that you do your homework. After you do your homework, maybe you can use it for another hour, and that's it.
Yeah.
And that's not something that's easy to really enforce, because it's like, oh, but I just want to play one more level, or I'm almost to getting this next thing on this game. And,
You
you know,
do.
kids are the best salesmen, right? They will try to get you to do anything so that they can continue to have whatever fun they're having. And as
Right.
parents, we don't want to kind of be the bad guy, but yet we have to be the parent and put our foot down and say, no, this is what, you know, the rule is.
Mhm.
Tomorrow's another day.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other part of that is like with money. Okay, kids don't understand money. So you could actually incorporate that and say, okay, you want to buy this, uh, you know, this pack for this game that you're using. That's great. When you come home from school tomorrow, you're going to empty the dishwasher and put the dishes away. You're going to fill the dishwasher, and then you're going to clean your room. And if you do that, yes, I'll give you $5 that you can use to buy that game pack, or $10 for that game pack, or
Mhm.
whatnot. So then it starts teaching them some responsibility, and at the same time, we're getting some housework done.
Yes. And I suppose in terms of credit cards, like one of my concerns is, of course, you never let a kid have an adult credit card. Do you think that maybe those preloaded credit cards would be a good idea?
In this situation, absolutely, I would say that,
Mhm.
because if you're afraid that by putting that information on, for example, a game, then the kid just says, "Oh, I want to buy something else." Click, buy, and all
Yeah.
of a sudden you get your card statement, and you're like, "What the heck is this $72 that you spent on, you know, XYZ game, you know, last month?" So by having a prepaid card, you could just load it with, you know, $20, $30, whatever, and that could be like the kid's budget. Now you can even teach them budgeting. You could say, okay, you got, you know, $20. That lets you spend $5 a week, or you can spend all 20 at once, but don't talk to me till next month.
That's a great idea. I love that. I love that. Okay, so I want to talk about, just kind of switching gears slightly, instead of kids, talking about parents. So when you're a parent, you just think your child's the most cutest thing ever, and you just want to share all those embarrassing baby pictures, all those embarrassing stories all over social media so everybody can know how cute and clever and adorable your kid is. But I have started to wonder whether or not that's problematic. Like, one of the things my daughter comes to me and asks me all the time is she loves watching YouTube videos that feature other kids just like her playing with toys. And she's like, Mommy, I want my own YouTube channel. And I know parents who've allowed their kids to start their own YouTube channel. But I wonder, what are the long-term consequences of putting information online about our children, even if it's just cute pictures, even if it's just funny stories? Because what happens if they run for president someday and suddenly this old stuff from online surfaces, and here, you know, they're making a funny face at the camera, and it destroys their professional life? I don't know. Is this just worrying over nothing?
No, in fact, I read something recently that said something like by the age of 5 or something like that, the average child had already had, you know, 200 or 300 pictures of them already posted online from their parents. Because obviously the kids aren't doing it, they're too young. So as parents, I think we need to take a real hard look at whether or not we want all of this information going out there. Because as you said, who knows what's going to happen down the road, and whether or not something that we post either can be used against them in the future, or what could be used against them tomorrow. You know, you're putting a picture up there of your kid that you're picking them up from daycare after the Halloween party, and all the kids are in their cute little Halloween costumes, and now you're posting that online. Well, now there's a picture of your daycare in the background with the name of it. All of a sudden now they know, oh, Amy's daughter goes to XYZ daycare. I want to now, you know, maybe I'm someone who's a little nuts, and I'm thinking of ways that I can, whatever, you know, kidnap her or extort money or whatever it is that they're trying to do. But that information, people don't even think about that. Like what's even in the background behind them. Now, you and I doing a webinar like this, I make sure, you know, the office is clean and everything. But when we're out and about and just in the normal course of our day and we're taking pictures and we want to post some things, we may not realize that some of the information that we are actually putting out there could be compromising the personal safety of us or our children or our families or our spouses or anybody. So it's really important, and this gets back to what I said earlier, the amount of information and the type of information that you're sharing online. Nobody needs to know where you work. Nobody needs to know where you work out, or if they do, you do work out, that you're going to, ABC gym Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 o'clock. Why don't you
Mhm.
just give people your itinerary, for crying out loud?
Yeah.
So it's really bizarre, and we all see it, how much personal information and detailed personal information that people put out there about their own lives. Why do they do it? Well, I mean, we could speculate all day long. Some people just want to share it. They're being nice. Other people think, oh, look at me, look at me. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why people do it, but most of them are not thinking about the safety ramifications of what they're doing.
Yes. And you're absolutely right. When I think about it, if social media, you have your location, your city, and your name, and you occasionally post about your child with their first name, boom, they suddenly know your child's name, where they live. Oh, that's scary stuff. Okay, so let's move on briefly from
Shift
that one.
gears.
Let's not talk about little kids. Let's talk about our teenagers. Now, when we've got little kids, it's really easy for us to say, right, you can do your hour before your homework and then your hour after dinner and you're done. What do our teenagers do? They've got their tablet, they've got their smartphone. They just walk into their bedroom, they shut the door. They say, I'm just doing whatever I like to do. And the studies are really scary about how that's affecting them. One study found that 92% of teens post their real name online. Over half don't think that posting personal information online is unsafe in any way. And this is the one that got me. Over two-thirds regularly receive personal messages online from strangers and never tell an adult. Does this ring true to you?
That is scary. And yeah, I've read a lot of information that's very similar to what you just said. The teenagers, as you know, I mean, we were teenagers, we thought we know everything, right? And your parents tell you something, it's like, yeah, 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 I know, mom, I know, dad, just leave me alone, I know. Well, they don't know. So the trick, I think, for us as parents is getting them to understand that we may know a little bit more than they do, and they need to understand some of the ramifications and some of the risks that can potentially hurt them directly or indirectly now and into the future. As you said, I mean, I got 3 teenage boys. Okay. They all, two out of the three are very into technology. The other one is more of an athlete. So he's out and about and doing things all the time. But the ones that are on the technology all the time, I mean, they have a really hard time putting the screen down. I mean, they're sitting there eating their dinner and they're on their phone. And that drives me out of my mind. And, I try to put my foot down, like, no, we do certain things, you put that down. Well, why? What's the difference? What's the difference is give yourself a break, give your eyes a break, give your brain a break, and just not be always so attached to the technology. It's a very hard struggle, and it's an uphill struggle, because this generation, these teenagers now, they've grown up with this technology from the time they've been very young. And so to try to limit them and take some of that away is like, you think you're cutting their arm off if you say they can't use the phone for half an hour. And it's
Mhm.
true, but it's scary. And so I think it goes back to educating them in such a way that I think by the use of examples, it'll drive the point home a little bit more strongly than if we just say, don't do this. Tell them, don't do this because this can happen, or this has happened to somebody as a direct result. Now, what are they going to say? That's not going to happen to me,
Yeah.
right? They're going to say, it's not going to happen to me. But guess what? Every single person that's ever had something bad happen to them has said the same exact thing. I never thought it would happen to me. it's, so nobody thinks it's going to happen to them until it happens. Whatever
Now,
it happens to be.
you do campus safety, which I
I
think
have in the
when you're
past.
talking to me right now, I'm thinking, man, college students, same thing. You do a lot of work raising awareness. Could you talk to us about, you've got a YouTube channel. There's all this stuff that you do for raising awareness on these issues.
Well, I did work as a public safety officer for a while. I've done the IT security stuff since 1995. I've been running my own business, and obviously, IT security at that point really consisted of, some viruses and making your network secure from somebody hacking in. Now we have so many other threats between ransomware and identity theft and phishing attacks, and I mean, just the list goes on and on. So things have gotten a lot more dangerous for the general public, you and I, as well as Fortune 500 companies. Anybody can be a target. On the self-defense side of things, I've also been a martial artist for over 20 years and done a lot of training, thousands of students, men, women, children. And one of the biggest things that I think is sort of the common thread through all of it is the awareness of what can happen to you. And then you're needing to know before you need an answer what that answer is. Because if you're in a situation, I don't care if it's something that happens to you with your computer or with your identity or with your physical person, if you've never thought about what would I do if this were to happen to me, or better yet, when this happens to me, because now it makes it even more real, you now can formulate some answers in your mind so that when something does happen, you've already got the answer. So whether it's your computer being hacked, your identity being stolen, whatever, or a physical assault, at least because you've thought about it ahead of time, something that can be done. And then the second part of it, which is actually even more important, is getting yourself in the mindset to be able to act when you need to, and with 100% commitment, 110% commitment, especially in the case of some sort of physical problem. You can't afford to not survive. You can't afford to not get home to see your family, your sons, your daughters, your spouse, whoever. And so the mindset of a warrior is one of the trainings that I do, as you alluded to some of the YouTube videos. The warrior mindset training on YouTube is a great introduction because it explains why that's so important. And then, of course, we can apply that to our daily life, in dealing with obstacles in your relationships. Well, do you just give up on them, or do you work at them? Whether it's with your kids or your spouse, or, it's your job. You got a boss who's a pain. He's giving you unrealistic deadlines. It's your job. You got to get it done. Do you just give up and say, I quit? Or do you go and actually figure out what you got to do to get through the obstacle that's in your way and the challenge that you're faced with? And so that all starts here. The rest of it is sort of secondary in my view.
Fantastic. Now, for those of you watching, if you want to go find Pete's YouTube videos, find out some of his books, just find out what he does, we've got a link for you. Just go to yourbrilliance.org/Pete. That's yourbrilliance.org/Pete. Thank you so much, Pete, for coming on to the show. And I wanted to know if you had any last message you would like to leave our viewers with.
Well, I believe your link goes to my website that has a free online safety checklist. So if somebody's interested in learning some sort of best practices and some things to look at to keep themselves and their children and their family safe online, or their businesses for that matter, you can go there and download the online safety checklist, and it'd be a great place for you to start figuring out, what can you do to make yourself safer online.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pete. And thank you out there for watching. We hope to see you again soon. Until then, let your brilliance shine.